I mean, can you recall when was the last time you attended a lecture and people talked about al-wala wal-bara? Even writings, all the books that we have, traces back maybe 200-300 years. The most recent, yes, Sheikh al-Qahtani came up with something new, but something that deals with us here in the West, we don't have something. And the reason why I decided to write on this subject, I authored 2 books. The first one is called Know Your Lord, which is really Tawheed al-Rububiyya wa Tawheed al-Asma' wa Sifat. The book also, all these books, by the way, are available for free on my website. And then I did Tawheed al-Uluhiyya, which I called Worship Your Lord. When I thoroughly authored these books, I found out al-Wala wal-Bara is the backbone of this theology of ours. And somehow I noticed that the early scholars from the first 300 years, they didn't also talk much about it, nor authored a lot about it. Like, you don't find many writings similar to our time. Likewise, our time, we don't speak about it, we don't write anything about it. So there is a similarity between us and the first 300 years. Jazakallah khairah. This is the book here, it's called Deluding al-Wala wal-Bara. And this is volume 1. I'm planning to do 3 of them, inshallah. So the point I'm trying to make here, by the way, I'm not preparing anything. I'm just giving you you can tell that. But we're going to get somewhere, because I really want you to at least get the seed of this subject. I'm hoping. So there is a similarity between us and the first 300 years regarding the authorship, the writings on the subject, or talking about the subject. But the reasons are different. The causes of the righteous predecessors not writing much on the subject because they implemented it. They lived it. They lived it. Al-Wala wal-Bara, they lived it. Because Al-Wala wal-Bara is Tawheed, is the backbone of Tawheed and Iman. And I'll prove this to you. And the reason why we don't talk about it, we don't author books on it, because we lack the knowledge of Tawheed. So you're getting the parallel here. We don't know what Tawheed is. That's why we don't know what Wala and Bara is. So they knew what Tawheed is. They implemented Wala and Bara. They didn't need to write about it. They didn't need to talk about it because they are living it. We don't know what Tawheed is. We don't know what Iman, and I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the majority of the Ummah. What Iman is. So we don't know what Wala Bara is, and we're not implementing it. In the next 5 minutes, so I'm done with the first point, that parallels. I really want you to think about it. Now, I want to prove to you that al-Wala wal-Bara is a component of Iman and the 2 pillars of Tawheed, the declaration of Iman, اللي هي شهادة الإيمان. Now, I'm going to ask you the following question. What is Iman? Can I get any volunteers? What is Iman? But before you answer, I'm not asking about the pillars of Iman. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking, what is the modality, the reality, the nature? What do you mean by Iman? What Iman is made of? Any volunteers? Really? We cannot define Iman? Yes? Yeah, that's one pillar, but I'm not asking about what you believe in. What is Iman? What does it mean that you believe? Man, we gotta move to Dallas. We have to move to Dallas. Give me a break. You don't know what? Any of the sisters? Any of the sisters? What is the definition of Iman? Any of the sisters? طيب. Yes, brother. Trust. I trust you. It's one of the meanings, by the way. You guys are laughing, but this is one of the meanings. Yes. Yes. Strong belief and conviction. I mean, all what you're saying is components of it, but okay. Yes, brother. Habibi, تعال هنا. You come here. You come here. You tell me قول وعمل يزيد وينقص. هذا هو. This is a student of knowledge right here. You know, what is Iman? 4 words. And dare you leave that room without memorizing those 4 words in Arabic, not in English, like he said. What is Iman? قول وعمل 2 يزيد وينقص 4. What is Iman? قول وعمل يزيد وينقص. Iman is a statement of the heart, action of the heart and the limbs, and it increases and decreases. That's what Iman is. What do you mean by the statement of the heart? Where is the brother who said conviction and where is the brother? Conviction and conscience. That's it. What do we call that? Tasdeeq. Tasdeeq. What is tasdeeq? I found the most suitable, proper terminology in English is attestation, that you attest. You attest. What is that? Tasdeeq. What does it mean, tasdeeq? That you believe without any shadow of doubt. Like these brothers mentioned, consciousness, or the brother who said trust. That's, you believe in the unseen. We call this what? Tasdeeq. Now, your tasdeeq, which is the word in English, is yaqeen, not yaqeen, yaqeen. Yaqeen is something else. Yaqeen. Certainty. That certainty what? Goes up and down. But it cannot go below what? What we know by ilm al-yaqeen, اللي هو الإسلام. Our religion has 3 levels, 3 domains. What is the entry level? Islam. What is the second level up? Iman. What is the third level up? Ihsan. Where do we get that from? Hadith Jibreel. Mal Islam, Mal Iman, Mal Ihsan. Those are 3 domains in the religion. And this is where your Iman what? Goes in between those. the Quran actually used other terminologies, which is علم اليقين, عين اليقين, حق اليقين. So علم اليقين is what? Equals what? Islam, that you have knowledge, but not necessarily it penetrated the hearts yet. In Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the Bedouins, قالت الأعراب آمنا. When the Bedouins came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they said, we believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed his messengers to tell them what? قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا. No. It's still at the entry level. ولكن قولوا, say what? أسلمنا. You're just a Muslim. ولما. You know what it is? ولما. And when إيمان يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم, when Iman penetrates your hearts, that you actually develop عين اليقين, that you're certain, you have certainty regarding things that you do not see. And the Sahaba used to feel this way, by the way. There is a famous hadith في صحيح الإمام مسلم. Hanzala. You guys know who Hanzala is? The companion Hanzala. The one the angels washed. Huh? One day, he came to Abu Bakr and he said to him, نافق Hanzala. I'm a hypocrite. He's accusing himself of what? Hypocrisy. But Abu Bakr said to him, why are you saying that? He said, إذا كنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم. Whenever we are in the company of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he would talk to us about Jannah and hell, كأن نراها رأي عين, as if we see it. So his iman goes from where? علم اليقين to what? عين, which is الإيمان. But when we go back home, عافسنا الضيعات, we start talking about business. You know, when you arrive home, you know, the first thing your wife asks you, can you take the trash out, honey? Did you buy diapers for the kids? He's like, man. So you begin what? So it drops. Now he's accusing himself of hypocrisy because of that. Abu Bakr said, I'm like you, then I'm a hypocrite like you. I'm the same way like you. So both of them went to the Prophet ﷺ and they described what they experienced to him ﷺ. Look at this now. Look what the Prophet said to them ﷺ. وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ, by the one, the soul of Muhammad in his hand, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you stay with me all the time, you will shake the hands of the angels. The angels will shake your hands. So you're going to go to what level now? Ihsan. But sa'a wa sa'a, that's where you're tested in this world. That your iman what? Goes up and down. Do you know the story of Ibrahim? When he requested to see how Allah raises the dead. You know that verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. Don't assume that Ibrahim doubted that Allah doesn't raise the dead. La. Ibrahim wanted what? To elevate from what? Ilm. He believes based on the knowledge that Allah revealed to him. But now he wanna what? Who did that too? Musa, when he went to meet Allah, he said, Allah, Arini, make me what? See you. You getting that? So these messengers and prophets did not doubt. La. But they want to elevate. And because of the close relationship Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam has with Allah, وَاتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ خَلِيلًا, Allah made him raise the dead. Didn't he ask him to take the birds, do what? Chop them, mix them up, place on each mountain a pile, and call upon them. They will come to you. You getting that? التصديق, that you don't question. Like I said, there are 3 levels up, which is what? Can you name them to me now? We could name them 2 ways. Let's begin with what? Hadith Jibreel. What is the first level? What is the second level? What is the third level? طيب, let's use the Quran wording. How the Quran worded it. What is the first level? Ilm, knowledge. That I tell you. Okay, you know what? Allah does this and Allah does what? Allah exists. There are angels. Now, based on my credentials and my credibility, you will believe me or you'll question me. And isn't that what the Prophet ﷺ used when he called upon Hadith ibn Abbas في الصحيحين, when he was commanded to warn his family members, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. He went to the mountain of Safa and he called upon them and he said to them what? What if I tell you that there is an army behind this mountain is about to attack you? What would you say? Will you believe me? What did they say? Because of what? Because of his credential, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? مَا عَهِدْنَا عَلَيْكَ. Come on, مَا عَهِدْنَا عَلَيْكَ. We never experienced you lying. So why would you lie now? So based on the deliverer, you're going to believe. But if I'm known to be lying, you're not going to believe me. But this is what? Ilmul yaqeen. Now, like this, I tell you, brothers, I have a book behind my back. So that's knowledge. Have you seen the book? Have you seen it? Are you going to believe me or not? Based on my credential. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supports the messengers with what? Come on, guys. Miracle. Miracles. That, listen, I have some access to divine, to supernatural. So you're going to believe me, right? That's why every messenger who delivers a message is given what? A miracle. To prove what? That he is delivering. Now, what is the next? Here is the book. Here is the book right here. What do you call that? You see it. Aynul yaqeen. What is the next? That you touch it. Okay, here it is. That you actually touch the book. Haqqul yaqeen. Now, there are 3 levels down. You can't hit any of those. The first one we call delusion. The second one we call doubt. The third one we call suspicion. There are Arabic terminologies for these. The first one is called al-wahm with an M, not al-wahan. Al-wahm. What is al-wahm? Is delusion. Do you believe in Allah? Allah? Who? What? He has no clue. What is next? Doubt, shak. What is shak? That you believe 50 and you doubt 50. Even. In Surah Ibrahim, the messengers were telling the people, Afillahi shak. What is the next level up? Dhann, suspicion. You know what that level is? That you believe 99.999% 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. Sometimes the calculator gives us like these figures. You know what? That's not good either. That is not good either. But by the way, be careful here. I'm not talking about someone who occasionally may have these suspicions. We all, may Allah protect all of us, Ya Rabbal Alameen. No, I'm talking about someone who actually turns this into a belief, that he actually goes out there and promote that suspicion. But some Muslims, they are tested by what we call waswas qahri. That shaitan comes and attacks them and make them think that there is no God, there is no. Actually, shaitan comes and they find themselves what? Following these thoughts. No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone who turns this into what? Into a belief, into an ideology, that he goes out there and he what? And he promote his doubt. Promote his suspicion. That's not good either. You're getting that? You're getting that? So the first is the statement of the heart, that you believe without any doubt, any suspicion, any delusion. Not necessarily the Iman level, at least the knowledge level, Islam level. You got that? Now, when you believe without any doubt that Allah exists, no one is like Him when it comes to His divine essence, names, attributes, actions of lordship. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. And He has angels who do certain work for us. He revealed books. He sent messengers. And in these books, one day you will die and you will be raised up again, and you're going to be held accountable for what you've done with your life, and whether Jannah or whether hell. So that statement of the heart, which we call the tasdeeq, the attestation, gets the heart to what? To act. The action of the heart. Man, I'm going to die. There is God. He created me. And He created me to worship Him. And if I do this, I'm going to be happy in this world. And if not, I'm going to be miserable in this world. And in the hereafter, I may go to hell. Man, I got to do something about it. Then your heart begins what? Fearing, loving, hoping. We call this what? The action of the heart. So the heart does what? Two things. The statement and what? The action. Then you start, okay, let me go and find where that religion is. Okay, what do I need to do, Shaykh? 5 times a day, masjid. Then you begin what? When the heart works, the limbs work. You're getting that? And it increases in what? Again, my subject is not al-Iman. You're looking at me like I'm coming from the moon here. Assalamu alaikum. You guys are okay? Huh? Now, where does al-wala comes here? What is the origin of al-wala? Love. But not the love of Hollywood. Baby. No. Not that type of love. This is called, what they promote out there is called lustful love. اللي هو العشق, بيسموه العشق. Love that has to do with the sexual drive and stuff like that. That love is different. It's totally different. Something that Allah places in your heart. Allah creates in your heart. So what is the origin of al-wala? Love, that you love Allah. You love Allah. You know how it feels when you say it, you love Allah? And by the way, Allah loves you too. Allah loves you back. And the evidence for this, قول الله تعالى في سورة المائدة, يا أيها الذين آمنوا من يرتد منكم عن دينه. Whoever amongst you turns away from Islam, فسوف يأتي الله بقوم يحبهم ويحبونه. Allah will bring another people whom they love Allah, and Allah what? Loves them back. But the relationship between us and Allah. So again, I want to prove to you that al-wala wal-bara is the essence of al-iman, because it's the action of the heart. You're getting that? One of the come on, you love with your limbs? What you love with what? What do you love with? The heart. And who controls the heart? Who does? There is an evidence, right? Hadith Abdullah ibn Amr. إن قلوب بني آدم بين أصبعين من أصابع الرحمن. The hearts of the children of Adam are between two fingers of Allah. يقلبهم كيف يشاء. Allah turns them any way that you want. يا مقلب القلوب. Keep my heart what? So who places that love for Allah inside your heart? Who? Allah. Do you have any control over that? What's your name, brother? Uwais Al-Qarni. Okay, brother, please don't make a mockery out of me. I'm talking to my heart here. My heart, I want you to love Uwais. Yalla, love Uwais, my heart. What do you think about that? What do you think? Doesn't happen this way. Who directs the heart to love? Now, do you expect Allah to direct your heart to love a disbeliever in Allah? No way. Okay. Ayat al-wala wal-bara, the verse that talks about al-wala wal-bara, the last verse in Surah Al-Mujadala. What does it say? Anyone knows what it says? لا تجد قوما يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر يوادون من حاد الله ورسوله. Impossible that you will find someone who has true belief in his heart for Allah would have love for anyone who does not believe in Allah. Because Allah will not direct that heart to love someone who is enemy of Allah. And again, this may sound a little bit fanatic, and but I will take you to another level here. Hang in there. But I want to build the case here that al-wala wal-bara is from the origin of the religion, al-iman. طيب. That means I'm supposed to hate, resent the disbelievers? Possible. But here is it. Here it is in Islam. Islam draws the line between your feelings and your actions. You're getting that? Not because you resent someone, you're entitled to wrong them. You're getting that? Yes, your heart is not going to accept them. Your heart, but they are not hostile to you. They are peaceful. They are nice people. Then you need to be nice to them. اللي هو the Quran called it what? Anyone knows the verse in Surah Al-Mumtahanah? لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين. Allah doesn't ban you from those who do not wrong you, who are not hostile to Islam and Muslims. أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم. That you be nice to them. But here is the mix up that Muslims, especially the new imams that we have in this world now, they mix between tolerance in religion and tolerance in interaction. You're supposed to be tolerant where? In interacting with him. How you doing, ma'am? How's it going? How was your day? If you have a neighbor, I'm from Pakistan. Can I bring you some biryani? There's nothing wrong with that. That's what in interacting. But in your belief, no. You're a disbeliever. And if you die like this, I believe that. Whether there is a statement, they say, tolerance is in interaction, not in beliefs. And by the way, a non-Muslim, a Christian or a Jew, he believes that you're a disbeliever too, by the way. Welcome to that. I mean, an Orthodox Christian, he believes that you're a kafir. Because you don't adopt what? His formula of salvation. What is his formula of salvation? Someone died for his sins. You don't believe that. So for him, you're a kafir too. But again, Islam what? Draws the line between those two. شوف الآية ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا. Do not allow the resentment that you may have in your heart towards someone to wrong them. اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. If you want to be righteous, conscious, be fair and just to them. شوف الإسلام. You're getting that? Likewise, by the way, حب, love. The people who celebrate the Mawlid. You guys know what a Mawlid is, right? The people who celebrate it. What is their justification? We love Rasulullah. ما هو like hate has to be subjected to the legislation, the teachings of Islam. Likewise, love has to be subjected to the legislation, how to love. That's why I called it in my book, moderate love and controlled hate. I use those two terminologies. Controlled hate. That not because you're angry, not because you're upset, like the Prophet. The Prophet didn't, by the way, dismiss the fact that we become angry. Yeah, one of the companions came to him and he asked, Ya Rasulullah, awsini, give me wasiyah. What did he say to him 3 times? لا تغضب, لا تغضب, لا تغضب. But in another hadith, hadith Abi Hurairah, Sahih Imam Muslim, he said what? The strong person is not the one who acts upon his anger and he becomes loud and defeats everybody physically, but the strong person is who? Contains. You're getting that? He's able to control what? The feelings. Likewise, love. You love Rasulullah, you still have to do what? Anas said, when the Prophet ﷺ would approach us, we would, radiallahu anhu, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we would love to stand to shake his hand. They want to stand to shake his hand, but we know he dislikes it. So we would shake his hand while we're what? You're getting that? This is what you call what? You have to subject your love to the teachings. And the Prophet warned us in Hadith Umar, عند البخاري, what did he say? لا تطروني, don't excessively praise me like the Christians praise Jesus, but say what about me? Abdullah wa Rasul. That's it. You're getting that? So again, I want to look at the higher picture here, that yes, you love with your heart, but this does not mean that you do whatever you want. It's exactly like, someone may fall in love with a married woman. Isn't some people do that? Does this mean that you go and divorce her from her husband? You act upon that devious love, satanic love, you act upon it? I can't, I love her, I can't. La habibi, you can't control yourself, my brother. That's what Islam is about. Just to give you an example, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and I mentioned, by the way, this is all in this book. That's for free. I'm not selling the book, by the way. Okay, it's for free on my website. PDF for free. McKinney.com, you can order it, but make an intention. It's a donation to AIM and Safa and to the work we're doing. So Umar ibn al-Khattab used to have a brother who became a Muslim before him. Anyone knows his name? Zayd ibn al-Khattab. Umar, by the way, loved his brother so much. He loved him so much. He was so dear to him. Zayd was killed in one of the battles of Ridda. And the man who killed him, his name is Abu Maryam, who later on became a Muslim. So when Umar, Ridda, the apostasy war was during who? Whose time? Abu Bakr. So Umar later on became what? The Khalifa. Abu Maryam هذا accepted Islam. And one day Umar was distributing zakah or something to the Muslims. And people are lining up in front of him. Guess who was on the line? Was in that line? Abu Maryam. Umar looked at him like this. When he approached him, Umar is the one who was actually distributing himself. You know what Umar said to him? Inni la uhibbuk. I don't like you. I don't like you. That's how he what? You know what, Abu Maryam? Look, ya ikhwa, look. أيمنعني هذا حقي because you don't like me or you don't love me. Are you going to deprive me from my right here? No, please. That's your right. But I don't want to see you. Who also said that said to who? لا, not Hamza. The killer of Hamza. Wahshi. Something similar to that. You're getting that? So Islam draws the line between what? And it's different there. Out there. By the way, Wala and Bara is a universal law or system. You tell me, you're president here, guys. I mean, I drive in the highway President W. Bush. I don't know, does he own the road here or something? Named after him? Do you remember what he said during that war? If you're not with us, isn't that wala and bara? The extreme form of wala, and Islam doesn't say that, by the way. Islam says, if you're not with me, but you don't harm me, I'm going to be nice to you. You're getting that? I'm not going to force you to be like me. And as long as you don't harm me, you're not hostile to me, I'm going to be what? That's what Islam teaches. No. If you're not with me, you're what? That's al-Khawarij. Khawarij in Islam. That's the form of al-Khawarij. So it's a universal. I mean, don't the Democrats and the Republicans have wala and bara? Come on, it's a universal thing. Any ideology, for it to survive, in order to protect the identity of your adherents from dissolving into the mainstream culture, wala and bara has to be implemented. And that's why non-Muslim wanted to cancel out al-wala wal-bara, so that you dissolve into what? So did I prove to you that al-wala wal-bara is embedded, rooted in al-iman or no? طيب, what about الشهادة التوحيد? What does it say, Tawheed? La ilaha. What is that? What is that? Bara, which is negation. That's bara. Illa Allah. Wala. Wala. The two pillars of the kalima is wala, is bara and wala. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ What? إِنَّنِي بَرَاءٌ مِّمَّا تَعْبُدُونَ. إلا الذي فطرني. ولاء براء. Again, I go back to what I started with so I don't lose you, that the first generations of Muslims, they really comprehended it. It was for them like, you know, that exchange between Abu Bakr and his son, Abdul Rahman, if you guys heard of it. So Abdul Rahman tells his father that in Badr, تَرَأَيْتُ إِلَيَّ, I saw you in the battle, then I turned away. Because I didn't want what? To face you. We know Abdul Rahman was fighting with who? You guys familiar with that? Or I'm saying something that you're not familiar with? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq had a son, his name is Abdul Rahman. He was not a Muslim. When Badr happened, he was fighting with the disbelievers. So later on, he was telling his father, in the battle of Badr, I saw you, but I turned away because I didn't want to fight you. You know what Abu Bakr said to him? By Allah, would I have seen you, I would have killed you. Why? Why now? Be careful now. Why? Because this is what? Come on. This is a declared what? War, battle. But I'll give you another example just to show you the balanced Islam when it comes to this doctrine. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anh had a mother. And Sa'd, by the way, do you guys know who Sa'd is, right? Who's he? Khalun Nabi, the maternal uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at this now. Sa'd had a mother that the people in Mecca, if they want to like give an example of how dutiful a son can be nice to his mom, they would say Sa'd and his mom. So Sa'd became a Muslim. His mom became very upset. She said the following: by Allah, I'm going to go sit under the sun and refrain from eating and drinking until I die. Until the people in Mecca, like they said, you are good to your mom, they're going to say that you killed your mom. She's pressuring him to do what? To leave Islam. You know what Sa'd said? By Allah, my mother, if you have 100 souls, and they would leave your body one after another, I will not leave Islam. But you know what? Allah didn't like that. Allah rebuked him for that. Just read Surah Al-Ankabut. Allah rebuked him for that. That's too harsh. That's your mother. Too harsh. You're getting that? Too harsh. Yeah, don't leave Islam. Don't. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا. That's not how a Muslim should act. She didn't take a sword and try to kill you in order to leave Islam. No, she's just talking to you. Be nice. You're getting that. الحب في الله, to love Allah. Now, what branches out from your loving Allah? Who is next you must love most? The one Allah loves most. Who Allah loves most? Rasulullah. That's why you have to what? Love him. And by the way, although I told you earlier that love is something, Fawzi, should I stop? Man, can I just finish that thought? Huh? Shaykh Othman is supposed to be here? 5 minutes, Shaykh. بعد إذنك. حبيبي. حبيبي Shaykh. تسلم. What were we saying now? Huh? Okay. Earlier, remember I told you that Allah places the love in your heart But the love that you have for Allah and His Messenger is not of that type. It is of that type. It's something that you have to work on. But it's a conscious decision. You have to consciously decide to love Allah and His Messenger. Where do we get that from? The exchange the Prophet ﷺ had with who? What was that exchange? Ya Rasulullah, I love you more than my children, except myself. He said, no. No. Why, by the way, why Umar said, I love you more than myself? Why Umar immediately submitted to that? Why? Because he understood that this is a legislated love. Something that you have what? You have no choice. You have to do. Yes. How can you then, I think the verb is inculcate, something like that, insert yani, plant, the love for the Messenger of Allah in your heart. What do you need to do? What do you need to do? Read his seerah. Wallahi, if you read his seerah, no way you're not going to love this man, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No way. The way that he treated the orphans, the way that he treated his enemies, the way he was humble. No way you're going to love him. So, although it's a conscious choice to love Allah, likewise, how can you develop the love for Allah? How? Study what? What subject? Names and attributes. Who's Allah? Find out who's Allah if you want to love Allah. You're getting that? So you can build that love. You can build that love. فهذا يعني this is just, those are 360 pages. And this is volume 1. I really enjoy, Allah, I enjoyed. You know, I wrote before books, but this is one of the subjects I enjoyed because it revives that, you know, that feeling of love for Allah. You feel that you love Allah. You know, and subhanallah, ikhwa, and I close with this, if I was, don't look at me, man. Shaykh Othman allowed me, come on. Look at this. Any time that you have love for other things in your heart, more than the love that you have for Allah, His Messenger, His deen, and the believers, you will be tested with it. You will be punished by it. Look what Allah said in Surah At-Tawbah. Look at this. قُلْ إِن كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ, count with me, 8. وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ, your parents, your children, your brothers, your wives, spouses, and your what? Your clan. Those are what? 5. وَأَمْوَالٌ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا, money. I want to be rich, money. I want to be rich. وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا, and a trade that you're afraid is gonna go down. وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا, and houses from guidance financial. From usury loan. You love the house. I love the house. أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُمْ, more beloved to you, من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله فتربصوا. ليلتكم سودة. اللي بيعرف من مصر يعرف يعني ليلتكم سودة. If you're from Egypt, you would know what I talked about now. You're going to be tested by these. This love that you have for one of these, if it overrides your love for Allah, they will become your fitna. And if you want to really get that meaning, why Ibrahim alayhi salam gained the title Khalilullah, Khalilur Rahman? They tell you because his heart was emptied out completely from any love for anything but who? That's why he is called what? Khalil. You know what Khalil is? You know what is Khalil? Is you know what do you call that? The stick? Khulla. You know in Arabic it's called khulla. Khulla, Khalil, the same derivative من مشتقات الكلمة. That when he received Ismail took a little piece of his heart. You buy it a little bit. He's an old man. He was hoping to have a son for years. So he ended up what? Having some love for Ismail. Wasn't he tested bit? Now take your son and slaughter him. You're getting that? Oh man, this subject is a killer, wallahi. Love this subject. Khalas, I rest my case. I haven't even started. Jazakum Allahu khayra. And I want to say again, Jazakum Allahu khayran for, wallahi ya ikhwa, very promising, inshallah. And we promise, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that we'll deliver. We're having a couple of meetings today and tomorrow with real estate, inshallah, to find us a location, inshallah. I want to say, Jazakum Allahu khayra, subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. So Q&A now? Oh, yeah. If you have any question regarding the subject after Shaykh Othman's session, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We're going to be having the presentation and explanation about music in Islam. It's a very important subject and it's a very important presentation. Just give us a couple of minutes so we can upload, because what I've done is I've actually scanned the books, so it's not just me talking, you'll actually see the evidences as well. And since we have a lot of confusion nowadays, I'm really going to emphasize that it's important for all of you to understand the evidences so you can, inshallah, explain to your community. So just by me in 2-3 minutes, once they have the presentation loaded, we'll begin, inshallah. الحمد لله الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Regarding the issue of music in Islam, I know there is, especially recently, a lot of confusion that's been coming up about whether music's halal or haram. And this is something that, subhanAllah, I remember the late 90s, early 2000s, when we had a lot of Tullab Ilm and Shuyukh and Shaykh Ibn Baz and Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and Shaykh Albani and others, their durus were being studied. We never really had this issue come up. Like, nobody really even brought this up. But unfortunately, due to the circumstances that we live in, meaning at a time where we have a lot of pressure to try to liberalize or water down Islamic rulings, we're seeing some people who respected imams that are trying to find ways to accommodate people's desires. And I'm not pointing out any particular person. This is not an attack on any individual, just presenting. Regarding the issue of music, the first thing that we hear from some of these imams is that music's everywhere. You know, how are you supposed to live in America if you're going to be walking on the mall with ear clogs and, you know, music is, you know, you're at the dental office and, you know, music's everywhere. So to be a good Muslim, do I got to put corks in my ear? Well, the fact of the matter is haram is everywhere. I mean, people that are not dressed appropriately are everywhere. Like if you go drive down the freeway, you're going to see a billboard and it's going to have a woman in not proper clothing or a man in them Speedos or whatever. And it's true, like people not being dressed properly are everywhere. Music is everywhere. But that doesn't make it halal. I mean, be clear, alcohol is everywhere, right? You go to work, sometimes people are drinking. You go to a park, people are drinking. That doesn't make it halal. Now, the difference is, what are you engaging in? If you're driving and there's a billboard, you'll see it. Obviously, you're driving. You're not going to close your eyes and drive to be a good Muslim and crash your car. But you're not staring at it. That's not what you're doing. You see, you keep going your path. You go to a website to fill out a form and they got a woman that's not dressed. You know, I mean, appropriate dress for us is full covering. I don't mean bikini. I mean, like if a woman's, anything of hers is showing from the aura of a woman, then this is not appropriate. So even if she's just wearing like a business suit, that's not appropriate for us as Muslims, right? So you're filling out a form, you're going to see those pictures on websites of men and women and so on. But that's not your sin because you're not going for that reason, right? If you walk into an elevator and music's playing, that's not your intention. Right? You're not doing that. It's a very scary thing when an imam, a scholar, says, well, music's everywhere, so, you know, what do you do, right? Well, that's very different from walking into a dentist's office and there's music playing and you going to, Apple Music or what's that other, Spotify and downloading Ice Cube or Dre or whatever and rocking and music's halal. So I mean, the imams that are putting this stuff out, they're not thinking through the effect they're having on the youth either. When you open that door, then understand you're saying music's halal. You're not saying that, being in an office where music's playing is not your responsibility, which is correct because you didn't go there for that. You're saying you go to a Nirvana concert. I'm old, sorry, my references to music are not going to be new, And you're out there buying tickets and you're rocking out there. Well, that's halal then. Right? No, this is not a dalil in the Sharia that, if music's everywhere, that means it's halal. No, you do your best to stay away from what is haram. You don't go to a dentist's office to listen to music. It's not a concert. You don't go into an elevator and download music to play it. Then that's not your sin. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And whatever of that you take, then we ask Allah to forgive us because that's not our intention. That's very different from saying something is halal. Tayyib. So if something being prevalent doesn't make it halal or haram, what does make it halal or haram? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, when he gives us an order, when the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Ahadith tells us something, when the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum tell us about something, then those are adillah. Those are evidences for halal and haram. Now, before I get into the evidences, and I'm not going to go over all that I have collected because this is not the place to go into that depth. I'm going to go very briefly and I'm going to focus mostly on the Quran itself today. Before I go there, I do want to make a few points. I understand many people listen to music. I don't live in a vacuum. I know. But understand that something, even if it's prevalent amongst Muslims, does not make it halal. Many people watch TV shows, Muslims. They watch TV shows that have women that are not dressed according to the Sharia. I mean, they're not full niqabbed up, right? That has music in the background and so on. And if you are struggling with that, it's your struggle. Don't worry. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Get away from it. If you have this issue where you like music and you love to listen to it, I'm not saying you're kafir or something. No. But what I'm saying is, don't justify your sin. It's a very important principle. It's one thing to sin and ask Allah for forgiveness, and it's another thing to try to make that sin halal. You understand the difference? All of us, we have mistakes. All of us have sins. All of us have shortcomings. All of us have desires. We need to identify those and work on ourselves to cleanse ourselves, better ourselves. If you fall into the sin again, make tawbah again. But when you start taking something haram and making it halal, now you're on the borderline of kufr. Now you are trying to play with the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tayyib, but what is the evidence? Because in the sharia, Allah makes everything halal until there is evidence to make it haram. Right? In the sharia, every ibadah is a bid'ah until you have dalil to say that it's from the sunnah. So when we say music is not permissible, we have to present evidence. It's not just, I don't like it, or my shaykh said, no. So in the Quran, in Surah Luqman, and I'm going to present here with the scans from the books that I mentioned. Why? Too many imams and too many ai say things without evidence. They'll just say it. And because they're respected, people will take it. I don't want you to take my opinion for me. I'm a nobody. I'm an authority. I want you to see the evidences. And these are all books from my own personal library. And I took these pictures myself. You can see they're not well taken. And I scanned them so you can see the evidences. And inshallah, whoever wants these pictures can take them. We'll share them with you. So then when you educate people, you do it with adillah. You don't say, Uthman said. Who's Uthman? You will say, Allah said. And the ulama of Islam in their books said. And these are the evidences. Tafsir Ibn Kathir, one of the best known, well-respected tafasir of the Quran. Ibn Kathir is well known. If you study Quran and tafsir, Ibn Kathir is well known. This is Dar ibn Jawzi's print. This is as well known, those of you that are Tullab Ilm. This is one of the best works on the takhrij, on the checking of ahadith as printed with Tafsir Ibn Kathir. And I have a video that talks about this print by itself. But I wanted to show this from Surah Luqman, where it talks about مِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَحْوَ الْحَدِيثِ. From the people, there are those who buy useless amusement. That distractive amusement, that vain talk, to try to misguide people. Now, this is in Surah Luqman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it in the Quran. This is not something that is from a scholar or something. But now, what is lahul hadith? What does it mean, that useless talk or that useless amusement? What is the meaning of that ayah? We cannot give our own meanings to the Quran. We cannot say, in my opinion, it means this. Who are you? We go back to what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum that were present when these ayat were revealed said about these ayat. And from this, as you can see from your screen, we have the report that Imam Ibn Kathir brings, and I'm going to focus on this one here, that he brings from Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, and he brings the entire chain of narrations here. And he says that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, Ghina, Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illahu. And he repeated this 3 times. He swore. Who is this? Huh? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Who is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? He is a Sahabi or no? Khalas, man, you guys all, nobody knows Abdullah ibn Mas'ud Sahabi? Respond. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is the one that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, go take the Quran from him. Go and learn the Quran from him. He is the one that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam explained about his understanding and his recitation of the Quran. So what does Abdullah ibn Mas'ud say with 3 times taking qasam on Allah? That the meaning of this ayah, what Allah is forbidding you from, is music. Now again, this is a summarized. I have scanned the other page where Imam Ibn Kathir also mentions the riwayat from others like Amr ibn Ali, and this is a sanad that goes all the way to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud as well, again, and from others. And as you can see on the bottom, in the takhrij, in the checking of the hadith that's done on Tafsir ibn Kathir, it mentions that Tabari has mentioned this with his sanad. Al-Hakim, Imam Al-Hakim, Nisaburi, the one who wrote Mustadrak ala Sahihain, he mentioned this, and he mentioned that it was authenticated by him, by Al-Hakim, said this hadith is sahih. And Al-Dhahabi, Imam Al-Dhahabi, who did the checking on Al-Hakim, also said that it was sahih. And it mentions all the way down to where it says that some graded it to be Hasan, again a reliable narration. But now, we have one of our brothers, and I'm not mentioning names because this is not about personalities, rather about the issues, who made a video saying that he doesn't have much knowledge of hadith. He begins with that. And then he goes on to say that the narration of Abdullah ibn Abbas, not the one of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he didn't even mention this, has a drunk in the chain. That's very interesting. And I have reached out to the brother. Shaykh Karim is a witness, and our brother Eddie is a witness. And I've repeatedly asked the brother that, with respect, to discuss this issue with me offline. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. And show me who's a drunk in that sanad. And I will show you the asanid. Imam al-Hakim, al-Dhahabi, these experts of hadith from the past, and we'll talk about present day scholars as well, reviewed these asanid and said that there is no doubt to their authenticity. And if you make a claim like that, you need to bring evidence. You need to give the name of which rawi. Rather, these ahadith are not just mentioned through singular chains. Please pay attention to what I'm saying. One of the mistakes some of our brothers make, and they copy this usually from others, is they take a single chain and they find some criticism by some scholar of hadith and they disregard the hadith, not realizing that there are multiple chains to these ahadith. This is an amazing work on tafsir. It's a Mawsu'a Tafsir Ma'thur. It's a collection that's been done recently, and this is from my library at home. What they did is they went through the books of hadith and the books that are especially a hadith on tafsir, and the books of tafsir that are ma'thur, that rely on the athar, and they collected all those together. So when you look up an ayah, you can find all the narrations that are from the Rasul ﷺ or Sahaba about an ayah, that are athar, that are actual narrations. You will see on your right, regarding this ayah and lahu al-hadith and the meaning of it, there is the narration from Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. Now, the first narration I presented was from who? Don't confuse them. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who said what about this ayah? What does it mean? Music. This is Abdullah ibn Abbas now. Who is Abdullah ibn Abbas? the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. What else about him? The Prophet ﷺ made dua for him that Allah gives him the understanding of what? Wahi, of the Quran. And praised his understanding. I want you to pay attention, because if somebody says Ibn Hazm said, or somebody says Shaykh Fulan said, we're not here to compare between. We're talking about those Sahaba that Rasul ﷺ taught them the tafsir and told us to take the tafsir from them, to understand the Quran from them. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma is the one that Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh would sit him amongst the senior Sahaba, even though he was very young. And he would ask questions to show the senior Sahaba how deep his knowledge of the Quran is. And those of you that know, you know about his tafsir of إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ, and how he understood it deeper than others. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praised his understanding and made dua for him. Here, not only in one chain. If you look up on the right hand side, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all those chains independently, through independent chains, go back to Abdullah ibn Abbas, and the reference to which books that are right there as well, that all mention that this is music. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, separate. Abdullah ibn Abbas, separate. Now where is the drunk? Again, we're not, this is out of love for our brother that we've kept our mouth shut with his name, because we're not here to cause fitan. We're here to clarify the evidences. And I have sent all these to the brother. Shaykh Karim, you're my witness. And repeatedly I asked the brother if he can talk offline, and he has turned down that offer. And even though we had a timeline, we've delayed it just because we are not people of fitan. We are people of adillah, of evidences. Now, this is one of the very early books of tafsir, Ibn Abi Hatim. He has also mentioned the narrations as well. And he gives from Ata, and he gives from Malik ibn Dinar and others, and Qatada, and Ibn Abbas as well. And he gives their asanid. And I present this to show that this has also been reported from many of the tabi'un. The next generation who took the tafsir from the Sahaba, they also mentioned the same thing. Imam al-Suyuti, one of the great early scholars who focused on athar, in his book, Durr al-Manthur, he has also collected those evidences and narrations, and he has presented them as well, and he relied upon them. Now, what I want to do next is not just to give you the chain, but also to explain the books of hadith that mention these. Okay? As I mentioned, Al-Hakim has reported this in his Mustadrak, ala Sahihain, and Al-Dhahabi authenticated, as you saw earlier. This is Imam al-Bukhari's book, Adab al-Mufrad. Adab al-Mufrad, Imam al-Bukhari, and this is not the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, this is his book on Adab. He also mentioned this twice in the same book, and this is the riwayah from Abdullah ibn Abbas. And now, he also has the riwayah from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. In the takhrij that I have, it mentions the checking of Shaykh Albani. And this is, again, when we go to the contemporary scholars of hadith, meaning those from this last generation, no doubt, whether you agree with everything or not, you would have to admit that Shaykh Albani was one of the greatest scholars of hadith of that generation. And there were others. We're not saying he's the only one. But he was no doubt somebody who did a great service for hadith. He has a book called Silsila Ahadith al-Sahiha. And in this book, he takes the narration from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and he discusses all the different chains. Now, if there is a drunk in the chain, you don't think Shaykh Albani would see it? He discusses all the chains, and he comes to the conclusion that these narrations are sahih. Now, I went to the books, not just from the later scholars in this, but even the ones that have the narrations across the board, like Sunan al-Kabir of al-Bayhaqi, and I looked up the actual chains of narration. So this has the whole chain from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, where he took the qasam and he said, this is music. Once again, the whole sanad is here. My challenge to our brother, where is the drunk? Right? Even if some of these chains had some criticism, you have to remember that there are multiple chains from Abdullah ibn Abbas, from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Looking at those together, no doubt that these are authentic chains. Now, why did I take the time to scan all of these and put all these up? Why? Because when we discuss something, we respect people's rights to have opinions. We're not forcing our opinion on anybody. And we respect the fact that ulama had khilaf and issues where they disagreed. But what do we follow? Do we look for excuses? Do we look for khilaf to make haram halal and halal haram? No. We follow the evidences. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Luqman has condemned those who purchase idle talk, lahu al-hadith, and when Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and many other, Jabir radiyallahu anhu and other from the Sahaba as well, like I said, this is a summary of what all I collected. And many of the tabi'un after them, all of them clearly said that included in that, and we're not saying it's restricted just to music, but included in that is music. And these narrations are sahih. Then the first thing we have to say is that music is haram from the Quran. Let me explain. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Who is that? The Jews and the Christians, right? مغضوب عليهم اليهود ولا الضالين النصارى. How do we know that? Because there is hadith on it, right? When we look at the meanings of ayat, we don't give our own meaning. We don't say, مغضوب عليهم is the guy who cut me off in traffic. Why? Because I got upset with him. And wala الضالين is a guy who can't follow his GPS. Because that's what linguistically makes sense to me. No. We go back on the usul of tafsir. We look at the Quran itself. We look at ahadith. We look at aqwal of sahaba. We look at the authenticity of those. We look at the aqwal of tabi'un. And when we have something clearly, authentically established, as Ibn Kathir and Asyuti and all of them clearly accepted those views and looked at those asanid, then we say, this is the meaning of the ayah. And if that's the meaning of the ayah, then this is what the Quran tells us, that music is haram. Now, are there certain exceptions? Yes, but you will have to prove those. The usul in fiqh is the am, the general is established unless you have adillah for khas. Unless you have an adillah for something particular. You cannot take khas and put it on am. Let me explain. For example, if you're here living in Dallas and it's time for dhuhr, how many rak'at are you going to pray? How many are you going to pray? You guys sure? You don't pray 6, sir? 4 rak'ah, the fard of dhuhr. Let's say you live in Dallas and for one day you're visiting Denver. You're going to go see Shaykh Karim. Listen to his dars and benefit. You're there for one day and you're on the way, you're already close to Denver and you stop over to make dhuhr salah. How many rak'at are you going to make? 2. There is hadith for the musafir. Now, your hadith for 2 rak'ah as a musafir, can I, while living in my city of San Diego, not traveling, say, well, Rasulullah prayed 2, so I'm going to pray 2? Can I? If I'm in my own city. No, why? Because that was khas for safar. That's not the general rule. So now, when we look at the hadith in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, and when people talk about it being mu'allak, and again, inshallah, we're going to put all these up, it is not mu'allakan dun al-sanad. It is not without a sanad. With the chain, Imam Bukhari brings the hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about those that will come in the later time and they will make things haram halal. And from them he mentions music. Now this hadith Imam Abu Dawood and others have gone through the chain as well and explained it's authentic, no doubt. Imam Bukhari mentioned the chain. He didn't use it as a title heading. This is a misconception some people put. Sometimes Imam Bukhari uses the hadith just as the title, but how do you know he's doing that? He doesn't put the chain. But here he mentions the chain. And I'm willing to sit down with anybody and go through each rawi and show their authenticity. Right? So now, when you have that in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, saying that people will make things like wearing silk for men haram, and the drinking of alcohol haram into halal, and wearing of silk from men from haram into halal, from the closer to the day of judgment, these fitan, and from them listening to music, people will start saying it's halal. From the signs of the day of judgment, in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, how are you going to get around that? They tried to find, oh no, this is mu'allaq. How mu'allaq? The sanad is there. Go through the chain. Oh no, there is another narration that doesn't mention music, which has a mistake in the word about silk. Yes, that's a weak narration. Because it makes the mistake. It drops the ha and the jim as well regarding the silk. And it makes, so how are you going to use a weak narration to undo something from Bukhari? This is people following their desires. Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani in Fath al-Bari, he explains the authenticity of that narration and how that narration is an evidence against music. Now, there are many other ahadith, many from Sahaba as well. And inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to make a video or maybe a series where I will mention all of these and I will scan all of them and I will post it for everybody to be able to use. But I want to mention another point. The same brother, he says that I went and talked to some scholars, but he won't mention their name. They don't want their name used. You know, when you're doing something good, you know, usually you have no problem with mentioning somebody saying that, look, if I ask Shaykh Karim, is Salah fard? Do you mind if I use your name? See, I can use his name, right? Now, if I try to ask him something a little dodgy, a little devious, he might be like, you know what, I'll give you a fatwa, but shh, don't mention my name, you know. So they're like, they don't want their names mentioned. But they said in the Hanafi madhab it's okay, in the Shafi, this is all wrong. Give your references. Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah in Majmu' al-Fatawa, he clearly mentions that all four of the well-known madhahib are in agreement. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, all of them are in agreement that music's haram. In fact, entire books were written that stated there is ijma', consensus of the ummah that music's haram. Now, you could disagree and say, no, there were some scholars that had different opinions. You could debate the issue of ijma', but you cannot debate the issue that the four madhahib. I went into Hashia ibn Abidin, which is the standard to know the Hanafi madhab. I went and looked at the Majmu' of Imam al-Nawawi and then the works of Ibn Hajar al-Haythami to look at the standard of the Shafi'i madhab, the Hashia for Dusuqi for the Maliki madhab, Rawat al-Murbi', and then its Shuru', the Sharh for Rawat al-Murbi', then Muntaha al-Iradat and al-Iqna' for the Hanabila. All of the standard mu'tamid books of the madahib, they agree music's haram. The four well-known madahib. So these brothers who make these statements, they do it carelessly. Oh, there's a drunk in the chain. Oh, you know, I talked to a sheikh, I can't mention him, but he said it's okay. This is very dangerous. And I want to warn you from taking knowledge from somebody who doesn't provide their evidences. Because the deen is knowledge. And like I said, and I have my witness, that brother, I'm leaving him nameless because we're not here to attack personalities. I have reached out to him. It's been over a month. We're waiting for him, even though he sent other people's videos, so he read our articles. He has not taken us up on the opportunity to sit privately. We're not trying to shame anybody. Just so we can present the evidences, he's afraid to even look at the evidences with us. Here, I'm presenting this. And the brothers and sisters of Dallas, I'm here. Anybody from shuyukh and ulama and a'imma that want to sit privately or publicly to discuss these evidences, I'll fly back with my books on my head and I will present them, inshallah. We just want to sit and clarify. If they're on the haqq, let them bring their evidences. We have come with our evidences and we are here, inshallah, with love and respect and nasiha, well-wishing. But I do not wish that the ummah goes astray and we see our children starting to listen to haram that's going to destroy their aqidah and their iman and their akhirah, and will take the love of the Quran away because some speaker decided to post something without properly checking. With this, inshallah, I want to end with one last thing. Regarding music, we have the Quran, we have the aqwal of the Sahaba about the ayat, we have the Sahih Ahadith, we have the aqwal of the A'imma, the tahreem of it. But I will mention one more thing. Ibn al-Qayyim, he says a beautiful statement, and this has been attributed to some of the Sahaba as well, where he said, nothing grows nifaq, hypocrisy, in the heart like music. It grows hypocrisy in the hearts. Today, there are studies that are published that talk about the effect by non-Muslims, the effect of music on humans. And they have shown that certain beats, certain tunes put people into states of depression, put people into states of wanting to engage in marital relations even when they're not married. There are studies that have been done about the effect that music has on the human mind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew this. Allah knows everything. And He warned us against this. Some people say, no, we're just saying listen to good music. Well, what's good music? Where did you get the idea there is good music? No, Mozart's good and Tupac's bad. Where are you going to draw your lines? Where in the Sharia is that? You see, when you open that gate, the harm you're doing to the ummah is irreversible. Allah protect us. Now, from the shubuhats that people try to bring is there were children playing daf, little girls playing the daf on the day of Eid. And Abu Bakr radiyan got upset. He said the instruments of shaitan, and the Rasulullah is there. Rasulullah told him, let him. It's the day of Eid. Tell you. Now, first thing to understand from that hadith is how the Sahaba knew music was haram. That immediately Rasulullah when he was there, Abu Bakr then got upset. And he called them the instruments of shaitan. Like people skip over that part of the hadith. Secondly, like I said, khas does not take am. The particular does not take the general. Remember the 2 rak'ah example I gave? So if we are to say that little girls playing a particular instrument called the daf, the one-sided drum, on days of celebration is permissible, as many ulama have said, no problem. But you can't take that khas and say all music, guitars, pianos, all of it's halal. That's a trickery. That's like me as a muqim saying, Rasulullah made 2 rak'ah, so I'm going to make it even though I'm not a traveler. No, that's for a particular case. So if somebody was to say that little girls playing the daf on the day of Eid is permissible because of that hadith, we'll say that's a khas, that's particular. But the am from the Quran and the Sahih Ahadith is music is haram. As alcohol is haram. And to make it halal is from the signs of the Day of Judgment, as making alcohol or the wearing of silk and gold for men would be making it halal, would be from the signs of the Day of Judgment. And this is very sad that today respected speakers in our community are pushing this and opening up these abwab without evidences, making blanket statements of drunkards being in asanid that Shaykh Albani and others have gone through and showed that there are authentic narrations without any defect when you put them together with all the different chains and so on. and nobody is challenging this. Nobody's saying, Sheikh, do you know what you're saying? No, even those like us who want to give advice, people are not willing to sit with us just to even look at the evidences. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us and to protect our children and to protect the ummah from the fitna of music and from the fitan of speakers who mention things without verification of evidences, who begin a talk by saying that they know nothing or they know very little about hadith and then go and criticize a hadith that Imam Bukhari has mentioned in his Sahih. Something that amazes me how the beginning and end don't match. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide them and guide us. And we love all our Muslim brothers and our speakers and our imma. And we say this out of respect. And we say this out of a want of unity upon the Kitab wa Sunnah. Any questions? Faddalu. Tayyib, where is the line that and nasheed? And nasheed that has no musical instruments, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It is basically like poetry. And we know Hassan ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu was a poet. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Shafi'i wrote poetry. Nothing wrong with that. But if nasheeds have guitars and pianos and all those kind of instruments, then they're music, you know. Especially because many of the nasheed, they have very shirki kalamat. They have words that are of shirk. So may Allah protect us from that. Inshallah, we'll transition this into the Q&A, but I'll take questions about this particular subject first. Faddal.
Assalamu alaikum.
Go ahead. Faddal, go ahead. The brother with the mic. I'll get to yours as well. Go ahead.
So how about the trend that we have these days, like people use the sounds of the mouth, which is called as a cappella, right? And it's exactly like music. So is it halal to use that? And then using of drums outside of occasions, because that is also termed as halal these days.
Tayyib. First and foremost, regarding a cappella doesn't necessarily mean making the sound of music with the sound. A cappella was a style of singing where it would be basically somebody freestyling singing, right? Just to give you a definition, right? Now, if you use your voice to make melodious sounds, meaning in the sense that, you know, how you take your pitch up and down, which are called maqamat, I believe, right? And that, as long as you're not mixing with the Quran, that by itself is different. But if you take the human sound and you synthesize it with a machine until it becomes the sound of music, right? That's a whole different thing. Do you see the difference? Meaning that if somebody, and I'm not going to try to sing because my voice is horrible and my throat's shot, right? If somebody takes a high note or a low note when they're singing some poetry, nothing wrong with that, right? But if you take the human sound and you make it into a drum beat, you make it into a guitar sound, because in the end, sound is just frequencies, right? So now you're trying to cheat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like the people that put their nets in on Friday and took it out on Sunday and say, we didn't fish on Saturday. Why? Look, you know, I mean, if you, look, the halal is bayyina, is clear, haram is bayyina. And that which is in the middle, the shubuhat, if you go there, you will fall into the haram. So stay away from it. We say that's not permissible. If you make it synthesized using equipment into the sound of music, then it becomes music. But like I said, if somebody uses high notes and low notes in their poetry or their spoken word, nothing wrong with that, inshallah. In the front, this was your question as well. You're good? Okay. The brother here with the glasses, inshallah, in the middle. Sorry, Al-Arabi brothers. The one with the beard. The one with the two eyes and the nose. You know. Go ahead, Akhi.
So does that mean, can you, for an example, like in college, you know, we have educational videos that have music in the background, right? Does that mean...
What's the first thing you said?
So like, okay, let's say I'm watching a video about how to code, right? And then they have like some lo-fi hip-hop in the background. Can I, for an example, lower the volume of the video and watch it? Or, you know, just watch it without listening to, I guess, not concentrating on the music?
So again, if you're able, like, what video was it? I didn't understand that you're watching.
Just like like any video.
Educational video,
Yeah.
okay.
Educational, just in general, like, can you watch videos that have music in it, but just lower the volume?
Right, so again, if you can turn the music section off where you don't hear the music, that's perfectly fine, right? Now, again, maybe you're in school and you have an online class and you're watching a video that's a part of your curriculum and has some music in the background. That's not your choice, right? You're in a class, right? If you're able to avoid it, yes. If you're unable to avoid it because it's something necessary, like a video you have to watch for school, then khalas, you watch it, ask Allah for forgiveness, you do the best you can. I mean, just think of it this way. If you are in school, you're trying to get your degree because you're a man, you need to earn rizq, and the online class has a woman with no hijab on, no khimar on, and she's giving a lecture. And it's an online class, you have to watch it, you have to take notes. We say you should do your best not to look, protect your eyes the best you can, and ask Allah for forgiveness, right? Because there are things that unfortunately, as society has digressed, we have to deal with, right? You go into a dentist's office, there's going to be music in the background. We know that. But that's not your intention. That's not what you're going for. You're trying to finish your class. You're trying to get your teeth fixed. That's what's important. Avoid it the best you can.
On the same music.
I think the sisters have a question.
Yes, so I heard like around that you're not supposed to sing the Quran when you're like reciting it. So how do you like distinct between actually singing the Quran and then just reciting it melodiously?
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. The Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, he said, ليس منا من لم يتغنى بالقرآن. He's not one of us, the one does not يتغنى بالقرآن, that means recites the Quran, if it's correct to say, with a melody, with a voice that is beautiful. This is what is actually upon us, to recite the Quran differently than when we recite a book. You have to beautify your voice. But the issue of reciting the Quran in the tones of the people of music, this is evil, right? You recite the Quran from the best of your ability to beautify your voice. And people, this is something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives whoever He gives beautiful voices to recite the Quran. So this is part of learning the Quran, whether it's for men and women. But of course, if women, they don't recite like that in front of men, but rather among themselves or to herself, without beautifying her voice in front of other men. Allah.
So that answered my question. I was going to say, when Nasheed gate is open, if sisters sing Nasheed, it's more closer to heart. So how to control that? I think that answers. The next question is, among the youngsters, you see a lot in this current world of pranking. So most pranks are lies, or that momentary lie of showing something for the sake of laughter or how casual it is. So, a lot of them are victims of it. How can they get away from this pranking? And the other question, when you try to correct them, a lot of time you get this answer, you don't know my heart, how close I am to Allah in my heart. So this heart excuse, it's killing us. So how to help with that?
Regarding pranking, just because I do understand the youth's ideas on this, and it is very popular, especially with the growth of social media and TikTok videos and shorts, where pranks get a lot of views, right? If somebody is joking with their friends within the halal, right? I'm trying to throw the young guys a bone here, right? Meaning that you make a joke with your friends without lying, without harming, without making a way where you say something that's going to cause any detrimental harm to their mental health and things like that, then it would be permissible. And the Sahaba used to joke with each other within the halal, right? I'll give you an example about the old lady that came and she asked about being in Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ told her that there will be no old women in Jannah. Yeah? Now, of course, what he said is the truth. Obviously, she took it as if she was not, and then he explained to her, because you will be in Jannah as a young woman, right? Also the hadith about who would buy the child of a camel And then he explained every camel is a child of another camel. So in that sense, within that halal, you could have some jokes and things with your friends. But when pranking, and majority of the time it does, goes into lies or haram or scaring somebody. The mu'min, the believer, does not cause fright for another mu'min, right? Many times they pull these pranks where they, scratch up a fake thing on somebody's car and then, they start laughing at them, or jump out somebody with like a scary jinn thing. Those kinds of things would not be permissible. Lying, harming, hurting somebody, those kind of pranks are not permissible. Regarding the issue of the heart, Allah did not make us mukallaf, did not make us where we have to check people's hearts. Nobody knows the condition of their own heart, to be honest. If anybody thinks my heart is very close to Allah and it's very pure and clean, you need to worry about yourself, because, how do you know? The Sahaba, they used to worry about being munafiqun, and they were the people giving glad tidings of Jannah. I mean, there's something ajib when I hear people say today, my heart is clean. How do you know? If your heart was clean, no bad deeds would happen from your limbs. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us there is a piece of flesh in the body. When it is good, then all your actions are good. And when it is corrupted, then the corruption comes. What is that? It's the heart. So nobody should claim their heart is clean. Allah knows the condition. Just like I should not claim your heart is filthy, because Allah knows his heart. I don't know it. Our advice is on actions. What you're doing in the zahir, in the apparent. If you're lying and you're cheating and you're pranking and you're harming, I don't need to worry about your heart. I'm going to tell you about your action. If you're drinking alcohol, if you have a liquor store, if you're selling cigarettes and vapes and all this, your heart is not my concern. Your actions are, and the actions are haram, and that's why we advise people.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
So my question was, I do hifz, and like the other brother was saying, you should recite the Quran melodiously. And whenever I do hifz, like to memorize, I don't usually do it melodiously. And when I recite it to the teacher, I don't do it melodiously either. So should I? Like, do I have to?
It's reciting the Quran with melody. It's both for men and women. There's no difference between men and women. The only thing is, for women, if you recite the Quran to yourself, to other women, yes, beautify your voice. But to a man, to a teacher, there is a man, definitely stay away from this. Because when you beautify your voice, you're going to soften your voice, things like this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade the wives of the Prophet ﷺ and the women of the Ummah, وَلَا تَخْضَعْنَ بِالْقَوْلِ فَيَطْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَضٌ. Do not soften your voice. And don't think that it's with Quran, it's fine. And people become at ease with this. For those who are teachers of the Quran, women should teach women and men should teach men. And for men to save their hearts and to save their religion, do not teach women Quran. Alhamdulillah, there's enough women teachers. Are we saying that it's haram? Of course it's not haram. But to draw the line and behind a hijab, behind a curtain, and taking all of the means, and without having this soft ways of reciting the Quran, makes it difficult really when you become a teacher of Quran. And the fitan, the reason why I'm saying this, there's so many horror stories that comes as a result of this. So to save ourselves, we need to make sure that we do it in the right way. So again, the answer, I hope it's clear, inshallah ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. When you gave the narration when the little girl was playing with the duf on Eid, can we only use the duf on holidays or special occasions, or can we use it for regular day basis?
For me, I'm assuming so. Without going into the khilaf ulama and details, I'll just tell you, as I asked my own teacher, and he explained that when there is a khas, it should be used in its place. Meaning that when there is particular exception given, it has to be used in its place. So the best thing there is the daf should only be used for Eid and such occasions by young girls and women not to be taken generally to be used in nasheeds and things.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa
I have two
alaikum assalam.
questions, one for Shaykh Usman and one for Shaykh Karim. For Shaykh Usman, it's basically we have kids and a lot of toys have music, rhymes, everything like have music. So how should we deal with it? And for Shaykh Karim, we have a lot of scholars in Dallas. One of them said, I fully support the right to insult Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in America, but not in Muslim majority countries. Is it against al-wala wal-bara? How should we look into that?
Okay, so first thing is regarding children and toys and music. Like I said, we do our best, right? Try to buy your children toys that don't have music in them. And you know, when you go to Saudi for Hajj and things, sometimes they have toys that have nasheed without music. You can buy those and things. But sometimes on iPads and phones, the apps come up with music. Do your best, right? Do your best. We live in a society where they are going to hear music, right? But that's very different from them saying it's halal to go and download iTunes and, you know, get, I don't know, Christina Aguilar or something, I don't know. I don't know singers, you know, so, right? So the point is, do your best to get them toys without music. If some app has some music or it's an ad that has to be skipped, skip it and try to get away from it as best you can. I'm not going to give you an ideal question with saying, no, make it that it never happens, because I live in the real world and I realize that these things happen. Do your best, you know, give your children the best tarbiyah you can. But before Shaykh Karim answers that question, and I do know what you're referencing to, I do believe he recanted from that, did he not? I just want to make sure, you know?
He basically said, when he came back to it, he said, I didn't say about America, but I just said about America, but not Muslim majority countries.
You want me to take this one? Because I know this one. It's up to you.
Maybe we can share, but I'm not going to name anybody, right? Yeah. So I'm going to share something with you from the Sunnah. And you know, as I'm talking about this, wallahi, it breaks my heart that a Muslim who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah can say something like that. Yani, this is absurd. And I'm aware who said it and all of that, but like we said, we're not here after people. May Allah guide them, Ya Rab. May Allah guide them. Wallahi, we make dua for them. Rasulullah, hadith al-Bukhari, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was doing i'tikaf in the masjid, the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So his wife Safiya came to see him. And of course, we know the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to dress full niqabi, what we call niqabi. Because he's doing i'tikaf sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he spoke to her from the entry of the masjid because he didn't want to exit the masjid. He didn't want to violate his i'tikaf, so he had a conversation with her from the door of the masjid. Two companions were passing by, so as they saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talking to a woman for them now, because they don't know who she is, they walked swiftly or quickly. Come back. Innaha Safiya. This is Safiya, my wife. So the companion said, Ya Rasulullah, we're not gonna think. You know what the Prophet said to them? I was afraid that shaitan would insinuate you to think about me in a certain way, فَتَهْلَكَ. And this will lead to your destruction. You know, I'm sorry, this is something that shows you where the ummah is.
I do believe I know, and I'm not going to mention names again, who you're referring to. And when this issue first happened, I saw the actual full QA session that this was a part of. And I just looked up just to make sure the response afterwards. Out of wanting good for our brothers in Islam, I hope from Allah that anybody who made such a statement made tawbah from it. Insulting the Prophet ﷺ is kufr. And advocating the right of people to insult the Prophet, I don't care if it's on Mars, forget about America, is something that our imma and ulama across the board have said is kufr. So we hope that anybody who made such an ignorant statement made tawbah from it for their own Islam. But rest assured and know that we as Muslims never, ever, anywhere say that anybody has the right to insult Allah or His Messenger.
Assalamu alaikum.
Do you mind if I want to say something also, inshallah? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, when he said in a statement, لَنْ أَحْلِفَ بِاللَّهِ كَاذِبًا أَحَبُّ إِلَيْهِ مَنْ أَحْلِفَ بِغَيْرِهِ صَادِقًا. Or كما قال, for me to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lying is better for me than to swear by other than Allah truthfully. The statement does not approve to swear by other than Allah, but it shows how evil it is to swear by other than Allah. From the same perspective, if people would say to be oppressed and not to have freedom of speech is better or worse for you, or the Prophet ﷺ to be insulted and to preserve the freedom of speech, let go the freedom of speech to go to the fire. Insulting the Prophet ﷺ, nothing is to be compromised whatsoever. Your life can be, our life as Muslims is nothing compared to insulting the Prophet ﷺ. Let alone to have freedom of what? What is the purpose of life if the Prophet ﷺ is insulted ﷺ? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that.
So we have a question. I'm just going to recap it a little bit, which is how do you maintain good family ties when family gatherings have things like music and mixing of the sexes in those gatherings? How do you maintain ties by either not going or so on? As Muslims, we should definitely do our best to maintain the ties of kinship. Salah Rahmiya is something that is emphasized in the Quran and Sahih Ahadith, but not at the expense of haram, right? You cannot say that I went with my cousin drinking because I was trying to keep the ties of kinship. You know, that's not how you're supposed to do it, right? So if the gatherings have mixing of men and women, dancing and music and things, this is not the place you're supposed to be gathering together. Rather, you can invite your family to your house, to your city. You can do a barbecue for them. You can, bring them to events and so on where they don't have those things of haram, but you're still keeping the ties of kinship. But as a Muslim, and sometimes as reverts, it's difficult because the family is still getting used to it, and I understand. But especially as those that have been Muslim for a long time or are from Muslim families and so on, I think it's high time that we start clarifying, saying, look, we are Muslim, these are our rules, this is how we go. And Anything within those, marhaban. Anything outside of that, I'm sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. Back to music. The evidence you provided were all understood, at least from my side, that they were related to music. Is there anything about the content?
So regarding the content of music, obviously Lahu al-Hadith, like useless talk or vain speech, is going to be about that which distracts you from Allah, right? That which takes you away. And the filthier it gets, the worse it is, right? The more it includes things of haram, like, obviously a lot of rap and rock and songs are all about zina and drugs and those kinds of things, the worse it gets. But the tahrim is not just for that which has evil meaning. The evil meaning just makes it worse. But when you have musical, if you have the guitar and a piano and you're sitting there saying, I love the Prophet, that's still haram. That goes on nowadays, right? Because this is like saying that I'm going to get drunk because I want to make salah longer. I'm going to smoke weed so I can make tahajjud, right? We aren't looking for opinions to justify haram. Realize that haram does not lead to good. So if it has musical instrument, if it has pianos, if it has guitars, if it has drums, and if it has these things, then regardless of the context or the content of the music, it's haram. Now if the content is haram, now you have haram on haram. Al-haram ala al-haram. Right? You have the instruments and things that are haram, and now the message is haram. And this is why I'm very saddened by Muslim speakers who are trying to justify, for whatever reason, I'm not going to judge their niyyah, right? Because the door they're opening is very dangerous. The people young people who heard those little sound bites from these speakers didn't go and listen to Mozart either, which would be bad enough. They went and started listening to the worst filthy hip-hop and things because they were like, Sheikh Fulan said it's okay, right? And that's why we have to address these issues with evidences. One thing that, this is just a personal comment, may Allah forgive me, that shocks me is like the statement the brother brought up, which I already knew about, the brother, who had made a statement saying that he supports the right in America for people to be able to insult because of the freedom of speech that it brings or so on. And people were still going to his lectures. like, what's up with the Muslims? This isn't something you need a PhD in Sharia to know. This is fitrah, this is basics. When you see such things, we can't justify it. We can't defend it. We wish good for the brothers. We ask them to make tawbah for their own sake. But that's it, khalas. It's very clear when you see something like that.
Assalamu alaikum. This is like an instance that I've seen in my life, and it's kind of making me curious about it. But let's say that there are identical twins, and both of these twins have their own children. Are the children, like if they're opposite gender, are they mahram to each other or non-mahram?
Are children mahram to each other?
Okay, so if there are identical twins, there's still brother and sister, or brother and brother if they're identical, and sister. Their children are now cousins. Those children are mahram to the parent, like the uncle and aunt, but not to each other. They're still cousins. It doesn't matter if you're identical twins, or if you're twins, or if you're, born 30 years apart, in the end, they're cousins. And cousins can marry, so they're not mahram.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My question revolves around Wala wa Barat, like the Sheikh mentioned earlier. I know of a couple of brothers that's interested in marrying non-Muslim women. Is it something that is permissible but disliked or is encouraged? And is there any prerequisites for a Muslim brother to marry a non-Muslim woman, let's say Christian? Should he have a certain amount of knowledge? Let's say he doesn't have a certain amount of knowledge. Would it be disliked, impermissible? Barakallahu feek.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah that it is permissible to marry al-muhsanat, the chaste. So that's condition number one. What does mean chaste? That she doesn't, go around to fulfill her desire unlawfully. She is moral. So morality has to be there. This is number one. And she has to be from the people of the book. It is permissible for a Muslim man to marry such a woman according to the Quran and the understanding of our righteous predecessors. But I always like to convey the opinion of Imam Malik regarding this matter. Imam Malik has a very interesting opinion, or at least his school of thought, which many Muslims do not know, that it is not permissible for a Muslim to marry a kitabiyah in a predominant non-Muslim community, like America. What is his justification? Because he said if this marriage fails and there are children who are the harvest of this marriage, the society is not going to protect their religion. Most probably, they will fall into the religion of the predominant wider community. But if this happens in a Muslim world, where is a predominant Muslim society, the society will still protect the religion of the child. And that's his justification for that. But again, overall, it is permissible. But I want to tell you something, out of, experience. It's very risky, because especially if the intention behind it is to get the green card or to get the passport. A lot of the brothers who actually marry kitabiyah for that purpose. Now he goes and he ends up with children, and as soon as he gets the green card or the passport, he divorces her. Although, this girl, would he have treated her, or this woman, treated her fairly and justly and displayed the character of a Muslim, she could have been a Muslim. But his intention is the green card. فالله المستعان يعني. بارك الله فيكم.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question about, like you were saying about the music and the instruments. Is like electrical instruments allowed, like an electrical piano?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No. The electrical instruments are not halal, they're not allowed. They just basically synthesize the sound of a regular instrument, wind instrument or piano and so on. All of these in the end come out to be under ghina, or that which is accompanied with musical instruments. Nowadays, even when they take the human voice and they synthesize it to the point where it becomes exactly like a guitar or so on, would again go into being haram.
And I also have another question about like the mahram. So if you have like a stepbrother, is he mahram to you?
Regarding stepbrothers and stepsisters, there is some discussion here, right? In the sense that there is different types of what we in America would call stepbrother. Meaning, let's say your mother adopts a baby and breastfeeds him and raises him, that becomes your brother. He becomes mahram with some conditions of how many breastfeedings and age and all of that. So that stepbrother, because through breastfeeding, is now mahram. That's one thing. The other is where somebody who has no actual ties, not blood, not through breastfeeding, but through marriage becomes a stepbrother, they are not mahram. Right? Now, if a parent marries, like for example, somebody has a son and he marries a woman, that woman now mahram because it's his dad's wife. Or if a woman marries a man, now her daughter here, because now the man has married the woman, now is a different relationship of being mahram because she cannot marry that man. On the other hand, when step siblings that are not through breastfeeding come into the game, those are not mahram.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Shaykh, sometimes we get questions from people who are newly reverted about different sects and different groups in Islam. They ask questions like, what's a Sufi, what's a Salafi, what's a Shia? How do we address these issues with people who are new into Islam or reverts?
Alhamdulillah, whether you're speaking to a revert or anybody else at a beginning level, obviously, we need to explain that we are Muslim. That's our identity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called us Muslim in the Quran. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam has called us the ummah that is the ummah of Islam, the Muslim ummah. That's what we identify ourselves as Muslim. That's our title. Past that, you have people that try to split the ummah, right? Whether we talk about the word Sufi, we don't find in the Quran us being called Sufi. We don't find in Ahadith us being called Sufi. We don't find the Sahaba saying we are Sufis, right? This is a word that developed over time. There are some difference of opinions on how, but many of the ulama have said because those people that restricted themselves to wearing suf or the wool cloth, which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has worn and disliked as a hadith in the Sunan of An-Nisa'i because it would contain the smell and so on. So if somebody tries to ascribe themselves to something like that we don't find in the Sunnah, then it starts to split the ummah. What's the difference between a regular Muslim and a Sufi Muslim, right? So here we say we stay away from these sects. We stick to the Muslim ummah as a Muslim. Now, as a Muslim, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, "Alaykum bil jama'ah." Upon you is to be the jama'ah, right? And he said, "Alaykum bis sunnati," right? Upon you is the sunnah. So if you say we are the people of the sunnah and jama'ah, this is what we find in hadith, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that the best generation is mine and the one after that and the one after that. So to try to follow the Salaf al-Salihin and to follow their way as praised in the hadith, nothing wrong with that. But we tell people, reverts or others, that we don't need to divide ourselves with labels. We are Muslim, alhamdulillah. What does it mean? We submit ourselves to our Khaliq, to our Creator. We obey what's in the Quran. We obey what's in the Sunnah. We take the example of the Salaf al-Ummah as has been commanded upon us in the Quran and the Sunnah. That's enough.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. My question is regarding music. I would like three of you comment on it. And basically now, we, generally like speaking music, we want to ask a question, what is music? Is it a drum? Is it the voice, the melody? Or what is music? What makes it a haram? And basically now, this is a very mixed up issue because there's going to be like a big problem. For example, in TikTok without music is nothing. Without sound, so is music the sound? So I like to hear more like explanation about the music, and then also like some cultural things, like in the music, there are some body movements, like, in my culture, they do music by, moving your shoulders. The drum, there is a drum and then shoulders, and so basically now the guitar, the drum, and all of this included, and then the voice, and then also like there is impression, there is like a memorial thing, like which takes you back to remember some things and all of that. So, I would like something to be separated so that we can understand.
So I want to ask you honestly, give him the microphone, please. You don't know what a sound of music is?
I do know, yes. But when we say music, how do we like, what kind of definition?
That's, we know what music is. Instrument. Yeah.
Instrument, okay.
So first thing, do you have TikTok? Delete it.
I work for TikTok, so.
Okay, so when we talk about the human voice reciting something with rhythm and rhyme, like a poetry, right? Ash'ar, shi'r, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's fun thing, right? As long as then, in that, we then look at the contents. If it's talking about somebody's mother, then obviously that's wrong, right? But if the words are good, like Imam Shafi'i, Ibn Hajar, Imam Ahmad, others, they wrote poems. Sahaba like Hassan ibn Thabit, they wrote poems. They recited them. Nothing wrong with that, okay? So if you want to remember your great-grandfather by writing a poem about how he was very generous, nothing wrong with that, right? But when you involve instruments, whether it's a drum, whether it's a piano, whether it's a guitar, whether it's a flute, whether it's synthesized, electric, all of that's haram, right? And Ibn al-Qayyim and others, they've given extensive details about meanings and linguistics and aqwal of Sahaba, not the place for it, but you can look up the works of Ibn al-Qayyim or Shaykh Albani and others that have discussed this in great detail, right? But the essence is, anytime you bring instruments in, this becomes haram. The exception to that, like we mentioned, is the daf, which is one particular thing, for little girls and people to enjoy on the day of Eid or some celebration like that. That's amongst women and things, that's an exception. But regularly, anything that starts, like you said, you start the shoulder movements with the drums and things, all of that comes under tahrim. Now, there are some emotions music stir, right? Sometimes you heard a song when you were a little kid, and when you hear it, it kind of brings you back to that memory. I understand. But this is exactly why music is evil effect on people, because it stirs emotions. And when something external starts to play with your emotions, you have to be very careful, because the fusaq and fujjar, they take advantage of that, right? Now, I don't want to expose anybody here, but if anybody's ever heard of Marvin Gaye, they used to call it baby-making music, right? Why? Because it had an effect on people that would induce certain feelings. And that was used by musicians to engage in a lot of very evil activity. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going in depth, but inshallah, when I make a video, I'm going to give you some case studies of musicians that used music to put people into a devilish trance where they had stampedes, like very recently, and this is documented, where people went into like a crazy trance, right? Using music where they were stepping and fighting each other without reason. There's a thing called a mosh pit. You can Google it, don't watch videos on it, where they take music and they get people, regular good people, into such a mood that they're punching and kicking and bouncing on people, right? So these things have a wisdom. When Allah makes it haram, let's leave it. So anything with instruments, leave it, inshallah.
We have a big list here, so let us address these. Inshallah, I will read the questions and al-Mashaykh, inshallah, help us out. The first one, there seems to be a new trend going around nowadays amongst Muslims where people go to non-alcoholic bars and enjoy drinks like non-alcoholic tequilas. Some are going as far as going through training, which includes working with real alcohol drinks to become certified bartenders to work in these non-alcoholic bars. I have a couple of questions regarding the following. What is the Islamic Sharia? What is the Islamic Sharia perspective on this?
First thing, why in the world would somebody drink non-alcoholic tequila? You just like worms? I've never heard of that, to be honest. I've heard about non-alcoholic beer. I've never heard of non-alcoholic tequila. And alhamdulillah, in my life, even before when I was away, I never drank alcohol, I never sipped it. But from what I heard from people that I grew up with, it tastes horrible. So I have no idea why somebody would want to imitate something like that. Having said that, back to the Sharia, dealing with alcohol, like the part of the question that says that they go to get trained, they deal with alcohol, is haram. Even if we were to make vinegar, khal, but we dealt with alcohol, it's haram. So Muslims should never deal with alcohol. So if you're going to go get your non-alcoholic bar license, but you're dealing with actual alcohol, that's haram. Secondly, to imitate haram is haram. To imitate haram is haram. So if you're going to imitate going to a bar and drinking alcohol, and I don't know, since you're not getting drunk, acting like you're drunk, peeing on yourself, I don't know, the things that drunk people do, or throwing up, making yourself throw up, and right? Why? I really don't understand. But anyway, imitating haram is haram, so please don't.
Fadil Shaykh Ibrahim, what is the Islamic Sharia perspective on engaging in the harmless pleasure? I don't know what that means. So, of Western society as Muslims, are they truly harmless? Well, harmless pleasures. I don't know what that is. Pleasure. Harmless pleasure. I don't know what, that's, I'm reading from the paper. طيب, let's move to how can we give da'wah to people like those? I guess, how to give da'wah to the bartending, non-alcoholic bartending.
Drink soda, drink juice, alhamdulillah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so spacious for us. Why would someone want to make it very tight? That reminds me of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سَنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ حَذْوَ الْقَذَّةِ بِالْقَذَّةِ وَالشِّبْرِ بِالشِّبْرِ وَالذِّرَعَ بِالذِّرَعِ. That you would follow the ways of the people before you exactly the same way. One handspan after handspan, exactly. حتى لو دخلوا جحر ضب لدخلتوا. Even if they enter the hole of a lizard, you would enter behind them. This is exactly what's happening. We see what they're doing and we follow them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us.
How does the Ummah know of deviant scholars, speakers, if their names cannot be shared or mentioned?
Dallas is going to get us in trouble. Yeah. Just like the UK. Look, one of the great scholars of the past who has, people ascribe a lot of strange things to him, but in essence he was a scholar. His name is Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. He has a book called Ghunyat al-Talabin, and he has a very beautiful statement. He said, Zin bil-kitab wa sunnah. Zin bil-kitabi wa sunnah. Weigh everything with the Quran and the Sunnah. So when a quote-unquote scholar comes out and says that he supports the right for somebody, no matter where in the world that person may be, to insult the Prophet, khalas, this is done. You should know better now. If somebody comes out and says there is a liar in a chain and you just saw the chain that there is no liar in, then you should know better. If somebody goes and promotes things that are clearly against the Quran and Hadith, then you should know. There are times that we will mention names, but we want to do things with the best manner, because we're not out to get views, we're not out to cause harm, we're out to correct things. So why we don't mention names? Because we're trying behind the scenes to give nasiha, advice to our brothers, and hope that they will make tawbah. And if they continue without repenting after we have done our best, then we'll mention them. We're not afraid of mentioning them. We just don't want to cause fitan. So if you've seen something with clear evidence, then it's there. If not, then use the Quran and the Sunnah to be your guide.
Something very quick, inshallah. We asked the major scholars with this, and that's why it's different from some situation to the other. It's not like we don't mention names altogether. Certain environments, yes, you should mention names. Some circumstances is better not to. So it's an issue that also involves ijtihad in the matter, and that's why we should trust the people of knowledge in that situation and these circumstances. It can cause harm more than the benefit. So we need to be flexible with this by asking the people of knowledge, not from our own perspective.
I guess I can answer those two questions. I heard you plan to for housing solution, but is there any solution now? What advice can you give to someone who wants to own his house? Regarding the first one, we have a team of brothers who are working on a plan, developing a plan. Like I mentioned, the ikhwa, for the halal housing to be halal, the source of the money has to come from Muslims. Again, anytime you go to a non-Muslim organization, lending, whoever, Freddie Mac, whatever it is, you have to pay interest. That's a federal law. Federal law. So the way that we're working on it, we have to group Muslims in order to put money as down payment. Basically, we're trying to replicate an organization in California called Amin, and I think recently they moved to Dallas. I heard that, right? Yes. Those are halal. If you want to own your house, those are halal. Why? Because everybody put the money and they take turns in owning the house. And the money becomes an investment for you. That the amount that you put, you receive revenue because of the lease, because the people who own the house, they haven't fully paid it. So the portion that they paid is good, but the portion that they have not paid, it becomes a rental. That rental turns to be an investment for the people who are waiting to own their houses. That percentage, so that amount is not known. Like if they don't know. If it is fixed, then that's usury. But Amin doesn't do that. So we're trying to replicate their model. So make dua for us. It's taken some time. Until this happens, you don't have to own your house. Who said that you have to own a house? I mean, we want to have a house, live in a house, but you don't have to own the house. Is it mandatory to own your house? Assalamu alaikum. Do you have to own a house to live in a house? You don't have to. Yeah, I think I got the essence of your question. So the brother is asking, why do I care about these organizations taking loans, basically that's what he's saying, from these lending, non-Muslim lending organizations and paying interest, as long as the money comes that you're dealing with them is lawful.
You see, this applies to dealing with individual Muslims. Because the default rules regarding an individual Muslim that he earns from halal. So I have no right to go and investigate his source of money. But this rule, and that's where they are naive, they don't say that to you. This rule does not apply to organizations. You have to investigate where they get their money from, because this is a business. Otherwise, you're aiding them to do haram. But individuals, yeah, you don't have to, unless you are provided with legitimate information stating that. We have another question here for Shaykh Othman. I think you're the best one to handle this, inshallah. What advice you give to someone? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the same question again. Yeah, where is it? Okay, here it is. What is the appropriate age to educate children regarding feminine issues like menses, also regarding the intimacy and, stuff like that?
I'm assuming they mean like a female child, right? Regarding the age to teach these issues, I cannot give you a number like 12 or 10, because with the urf and adat, the general situation of countries is different. What I will say is, for example, a girl before she gets her menses, when she's getting close to that age, that to teach her with proper etiquettes, maybe using a matan from the Mutun and Fiqh, is important, so that when she does reach that age, she is understanding of what's going on and what are the rulings around it. Regarding intimate relations, again, when somebody is about to get married or they're close to marriage, then to discuss the Islamic rulings of what's haram and halal would be important. It's also important not to overexpose our children to things unnecessarily. Now, some families nowadays, under the guise of discussing certain rulings, they get into details with children that are very young that they really shouldn't. This is not the time and place. Rather, you have to look at the situation. If you know that a boy is about to hit bulugh or a girl is about to hit bulugh, then obviously as a parent, you know certain signs. You should explain to them in a respectful manner about the rulings that are related, without being overly blunt and overly crude either. And if that person or child is not at an age where that's necessary, to unnecessary and especially explicitly mention these things is not good, because it messes with the psyche. Obviously, you also don't want to have children that don't know the rulings when they need them. So look at the situation, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
No, we still have questions here. Let's finish this.
There's a question, there's differences in opinion regarding women entering the masjid and also regarding reciting the Quran while menstruating. What is the most correct opinion and how to find the middle ground between two strong different opinions? Before I answer this question, I want to just say something very, very brief, but this is a very important thing if you want to take a note of it, because this is a principle that need to follow, especially also with the subject of music and so on. Some of the people, they take differences of opinions as an evidence to do one thing or the other. And there is consensus among the ummah, the ulama, differences of opinions are not evidence of anything. The evidences are the Quran and the Sunnah. Imam Ibn Abd al-Barr, rahimahullah, in his book Jam' al-Ulum and so on, he said that al-ikhtilaf laysa bihujja عند عامة من أعرف من الفقهاء. The ikhtilaf, the difference of opinions is not hujjah, it's not evidence. إلا except من لا بصر له ولا معرفة عنده ولا حجة لقوله. Except for those who have no vision, no knowledge. These are the ones that take differences of opinions as an evidence. And that's why, for example, when someone is saying this is haram, this is halal, they say, brother, there's differences of opinions. Difference of opinions is not hujjah, it's not an evidence. Talk about the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ from the statements of the ulama, the same thing that they use with music and so on. To answer this question, Yes, there is a valid differences of opinion in some matters, and this is something for us to consider, yes, but not as an evidence in itself. For women to enter the masjid with being in menses, the correct opinion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, that it's not permissible. And there's evidences, even some of the hadith where some of the ulama, they said it's weak, but the hadith, for example, in Salatul Eid, where the Prophet ﷺ commanded the women to go for Eid, and those who are in menses, يَعْتَزِلْنَ الْمُصَلَّى. Even though Eid is prayed outside, but for the women, those who are in menses, is to stay away from the musalla, from the place where the people are making salah. So it's best to avoid that if it's the masjid. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would reward them for that. The other opinion with regards to reciting the Quran while menstruating, it's the opposite, because as the correct opinion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, and it's a valid differences of opinions, that if just reciting the Quran, it's permissible for women to recite the Quran while being in menses. But it's not permissible to touch the Quran, which has more of the words of Allah than the words of the human being. So if it's a book of tafsir, if it's translation, it's okay. Reciting, just reciting, it's okay. Why? Because there's no evidence that prevents them from this. There's no evidence that says it's not permissible for women to recite the Quran while in menses. But there's evidences when it comes to touching the Quran for someone that is not in state of purification, with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. I hope it's clear, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So Shaykh Othman mentioned, how you take something that is khas and then there's something that's am, and you don't combine that, from khas to am, right? So the question that I have is related to salah. The hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ said that anytime you enter the masjid, you pray 2 rakat tahiyatul masjid. And then there's a hadith that there's a forbidden times when you don't pray. So how do you take that ruling and apply that? Like when I go 2 minutes before, 3 minutes before Maghrib, do I pray tahiyatul masjid? And how do I apply that ruling? That's my question.
That's a very good question. And this is a mas'ala I spent a lot of time on. There are some masail where I read, obviously the books of the different madahib and adillah and ulama, and I just couldn't get my head clear. So I would do what Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah did, is I would just go outside to a dirt area and just make sujood and ask Allah to open my heart to these masail, like the issue of whether to make haraka or not, and wada' or irsal. Like these are issues that are complicated. So this issue is one of those masail, because the ulama that presented the opposing views actually used the same principle. The same khas and am was used. The ulama that felt that you should not make rak'atayn during times of mana or nahi, they said that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you enter a masjid, do not sit without making rak'atayn, this is am. This is generally any time. And the times that are forbidden are khas. And the other ulama who took the opposite view said, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbid praying during those times, that was the am for nafal, mutlaq. And the khas is the sabab that you entered the masjid. It's very interesting. And I spent a lot of time on this, and in the videos that we did on Zad and Akhsar, I gave a lot of details and discussions without getting into all of that. The safest view that if you enter the masjid a few minutes before adhan, keep standing until the adhan. Don't sit down. And then after the adhan, make rak'atayn, and then you can sit. That way you are outside the khilaf. But if you enter and it's still an hour for the adhan, and for example, you came in after Asr Salah and you need to sit, then wallahu alam. But as I take the stronger view, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and others have mentioned, is you make the rak'atayn even in the time of nahi. Why? Because there are hadith that show that you can pray certain nawafil in the time of nahi, like the hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying after Asr, and his wife asked him why he was praying, and he explained that these were the nafal salawat that he had missed for dhuhr because the people had made him busy. So that means when you have a sabab to pray in those times is permissible. Also the hadith about not forbidding somebody from making rak'atayn after the tawaf any time in the day and night, meaning you can pray those even in times of nahi. So in the end, what becomes evident is the am here is the forbiddance for nafal mutlaqan, and the khas is when there is sabab you're allowed to, so you can make the rak'atayn in the times of nahi. But like I said, if it's only a few minutes, just keep standing to get yourself out of the khilaf. Inshallah, we have, what is the ruling for a woman to go and work outside if it's her passion and not necessity, and her husband doesn't like it as it's something against the Sharia?
Women can work provided that they don't compromise their responsibilities at home, that the husband doesn't become the mother of the children. And, you know, there are certain duties for women, for sisters, that can only be fulfilled by sisters. So as long as she can fulfill these duties, it is permissible for her to go and work. But now we have to look at how she goes out of the house to work. And what does she observe the etiquettes of a dress code for a sister? Also the interaction. Does she have to interact with men? Is that going to be done? So if all these variables are carefully fulfilled, she can work, but most probably one of these are going to fall down. So, you know, if you can fulfill these prerequisites, mashallah, although I don't think you can, and I think you need to reconsider that passion. Do you want to add something? Can I just read, because this is a very interesting question here. Shaykh Othman, I think that's very befitting for you. A lot of youth boys nowadays say it is okay to have female friends as long as you keep it halal. You keep it dhabiha. Is this astaghfirullah, wallahi, questions out of this world. I mean, for you even to sit and compose these questions out of, you know, entertainment is it permissible? And if not, how can we justify this for our kids?
First thing, what is halal and haram is what Allah and His Prophet ﷺ have decreed to be halal and haram. And for men and women to have an ilaqa, to have a relationship outside what Allah has ordained is haram, right? اختلاف بين الرجال والنساء, and the mixing between men and women that are not mahram is haram. So there is no halal in that, right? Now, let's say you have an aunt who's mahram to you. Of course, nothing wrong with that. You have your wife, your sister, your mother, nothing wrong with that. You have, for example, your daughter, your granddaughter. Those are relations where it's halal for you to have those interactions. Other than that, outside of necessity, to have that intermixing is something that's haram. So there is no halal there. Secondly, let's just be real. Let's be honest about this, right? Especially young men, when they have a close relationship, friendship with a non-mahram young woman, they can lie to themselves, but biologically and psychologically and in human nature, there are going to be times where either from one side or the other, or one way or the other, things are going to get complicated, right? And fitan and things come. That's just human nature. And even non-Muslim psychologists, and they have done studies on this, where there's always going to be that tension. So why would we put ourselves in that situation? Allah has made the mahram clear for us. Who's your mahram? Allah has made keeping company with good, righteous people and in the right way. If you're a brother, find some good religious brothers, be with them, spend time with your mother, your sister, your wife, your children, and khalas, that's your life, alhamdulillah. Why do you want to go to your neighbor's wife and be like, let's go shopping together, you know? Right? It just doesn't make sense, you know, like you're going to do your nails together or what, right? And if you're a sister, alhamdulillah, yani, find some good religious sisters so you can have good environment, you know, your brother, your father, your son, your husband, alhamdulillah. Why do you want to go to a football player and be like, yo, let's go and, I don't know, throw the ball at each other? You know, it's against the fitrah of insan, and it causes a lot of fitan. Okay. Question to all three sheikh. Is eating anything other than hand-slaughtered meat haram? And is it the same as eating pig and dog, as some imams outside Dallas have been propagating in Dallas? First thing is that the halal and haram and the rulings are clear in the Quran and in the Sahih Ahadith, and the A'imma and Ulama have explained this, right? Meaning, you have khinzir, for example, a pig. A pig is haram, it's najis, rijsun, something filthy, no doubt to that. Okay. Then you have meita, that which is dead meat, meaning that something that's electrocuted or shot in the head or hit by a car, even if that meat would have been halal, if slaughtered properly, now it's meita, it's filthy, it's haram, right? Then you have certain animals that, unlike the pig, they're still haram to eat, like tigers and lions and things, and you know, we can talk about all those. Those are very evident in the Sharia. Then you have those that are halal, mutlaqan, right? For example, an animal like a sheep or a goat or a cow that's slaughtered properly, alhamdulillah, those are halal. And then there are some where there are some khilaf ulama, like the hyena and things like this, right? So first thing, we should know that those are all different categories. You can't mix all of those together, right? Secondly, when we talk about hand slaughtered and machine slaughtered, there is a lot of detail that needs to be discussed, because not all machine slaughter is the same. There are those that turn on a machine in the morning and say Bismillah and walk away, and the machine is going and it's killing 200, sometimes 140, 180 chickens, and some of them take the whole head off and nobody knows and nobody cares, and that's something that is not permissible in the Sharia. And then there are those that are people operating an electric knife where they are saying Bismillah per batch, and as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen explained from the hadith of hunting, that those would be permissible. So these details should not be skipped over, right? If something is slaughtered in accordance to what is acceptable in the Sharia, then this is halal. And if something is not slaughtered in accordance to what the Sharia has ordained, then that is haram. Within haram, then you have different categories, and their najasa is different, right? You have to know those fiqh rulings. Having said all of that, we also see sometimes a little bit of ta'assub, which we have dealt with in San Diego from some other groups, where if somebody is not certified by them, then they say it's haram. Well, just because you didn't certify it doesn't mean it's haram, right? Because there are multiple certifying bodies in the US, and we in San Diego were approached by a couple from the East Coast, not going to mention names, and they, even though their standards are the same standards, they abused each other. They were trying to get us, and they were like, these guys, they eat haram. These guys, they, like, akhi, don't say that. Be careful, and with your words, right? So what is important is that you know what are the standards, what is halal according to the Sharia, and what is haram, and you stick to that which is halal, and that stay away from that which is haram. Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I have two questions. So I've seen in your videos that you have a Bible that is like heavily annotated.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you would ever, like, you don't have to share those exact annotations, but would you ever make like a blog post or anything saying like some things that we can like talk to our Christian friends and family about? And my second question is, if we don't want to take the contradictory route, because some people get triggered by that, how did the Prophet, peace be upon him, did dawah to people?
That's a both great questions. The answer to the first question, and I don't mind sharing my notes with anybody. I mean, I brought the Bible here. It's right now in my car. If anybody wants to copy everything, they can. That's not an issue. Like, I'm not trying to copyright my stuff, right? I did think about publishing, as it was requested by a lot of people, a Bible with my notes. But then I thought, why would I publish a Bible? You know what I mean? So what I have decided, and I mentioned this yesterday, with the advice of many of my own shuyukh, is that to write a book on da'wah, and it's going to be free, waqf for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what I will do is I'll mention all the contradictions, not just numeric and name, but also theological inconsistencies that I ran across in the Bible in there. So everything that's highlighted or marked and annotated in my Bible will be in that book, and you can download the book or buy a copy if you like. And I'm not going to make a penny off it. Inshallah, it will be there as I'm going to call it the Da'wah Field Manual, right? And it's going to have other things. Inshallah, yesterday I talked about that, but I'm waiting for Shaykh Karim to kidnap me and put me in a room for 10 days with tea. And
I'm going to have to take him to my village in Egypt, inshallah. Inshallah, bidnillah. So we were told we only allowed one more question because of the time.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, sister, we have a couple of sisters' questions. Yeah, so in 1 minute, Shaykh Othman is going to cover them.
Okay, inshallah. I want to make sure, because we already have these, let us finish these. But let me just finish the sister's question, actually, sorry. Regarding the contradictions, if that triggers people, it also triggers thought. And we've had a lot of people, and there is very famous YouTubers that messaged me today, I'm not going to mention his name, who originally got very triggered from me mentioning some of these, and now he's reaching out. Today he messaged me, he's not Muslim yet, make dua for him. I'll just give the hint that he's young. And his name starts with a D. But inshallah, and we hope from Allah that Allah guides him, and we're going to have a conversation, and now he's wanting to learn. So sometimes, even if they get triggered, it does open up their thought. The Prophet ﷺ gave da'wah to the Christians, Yahud. He also told them in his da'wah that you guys changed your works, you added to it with your own hands, and the Quran condemns them for this. And he even had them many times bring the book, and he showed them, and when they tried to hide things, he exposed that. So that is from the Sunnah. Tayyib. There is a question about, can we use Tafhim al-Quran, which is the tafsir by Mawdudi, and also Bayan al-Quran, which is the tafsir by Dr. Israr Ahmad, and which one is best? I do not suggest either one of those books to the awam. And every book has good and bad and things, but especially the things having to do with Musa alayhi salam and his leadership, and Yusuf alayhi salam and his position, the mistakes that were made in these books, I do not suggest. If you are unable to read Arabic, in the English language, also in Urdu, they have Tafsir Sa'di of Shaykh Abdurrahman Nasir al-Sa'di, which is an excellent tafsir. I recommend it. If you're at a higher level than that, then tafasir like Ibn Kathir or Baghawi, which do have abridged versions in English, are excellent tafasir. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen's tafsir, if you have the Arabic, is excellent, and so on. So I would not suggest there are better books you can read. Even if you get Dr. Mohsin Khan's Noble Quran, the larger one, it's 9 volumes, it's excellent, all the tafsir is from hadith and so on. I think, what is this one? What is, any of these that we haven't answered? Yes, this one. Okay. Is it wrong for a father to show less love or cut off his daughter just because she got married? Is it okay for a father to be mean or say words like, you're not my child anymore just because of marriage? I think this is a loaded question. I don't know if a father is, just because his daughter got married, he would say that. Maybe if she got married against his wishes or something like that. But to answer the question as it is, it's not okay to say things like, you're not my daughter, or to cut his daughter off just because she got married. But again, if there was some haram involved, then that's a different issue. I don't want to step into loaded questions, but in the Desi custom, it happens that sisters who wear the abaya and niqab are often asked to attend mixed gatherings, even though they don't like it, as it goes against the Sharia. Please shed light on how to deal with this situation. My answer would be, don't go. And it would be very strange if somebody really insists on this. But again, if you're young and you're unable to not go, then try to minimize the harm as much as possible. But try to advise your parents and your family, and you can talk to the shuyukh to advise them, and marry a good religious husband that will not make you go to such things, so that you stay away from it. If you're forced, then we understand that situations happen. Do your best to mitigate it as much as possible.
What is the ideal balance for a married couple with children? How involved should the father be at home with the children and attending conferences to gain knowledge if the mother feels overwhelmed with home duties? I don't know. Well, of course, to answer this in 1 minute or less, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seek help from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ask the advice of the people of knowledge. And really, with the issue of families, for the sisters, be obedient to your husbands. And for the husbands, istawsu bin nisa'i khayran. Be kind to your wives. This is the perfect combination. Once one is not fulfilling their duties, as the Prophet ﷺ said, all kinds of corruption happens. And fulfilling the rights and being kind and overlooking and finding excuses for others to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does listening to music call the harmful evil unseen unto you? It's valid, yes, and it does. Those who sleep, walk, or talk in their sleep is a sign of affliction of evil eyes. Well, there is some physical aspects to it, and there might also some non-physical aspects. So take the means of cure physically, and ruqya is always good at all times, inshallah. Barakallah fi.
We have one last question there. The last question, Brother Yameen. And the brother there, we'll take you, inshallah. Until Brother Yameen figure out the microphone, this is our next Authentic Ilm Mission Conference, Labor Day weekend, September 1st to 3rd, Columbia, South Carolina. That is Shaykh Adly's town, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And the theme is faith-centered environment. How can we build that to protect our religion, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairah. If you want to plan driving, you can start driving from now. Or if you're going to fly, you look at your tickets, inshallah, bi'idhnillah.
Assalamu alaikum. So for two questions. First question is the permissibility of wearing silk for men, artificial silk, and also someone here mentioned that accessories like silk ties, whether that's permissible. And the other question is also wearing pants or ijar underneath the ankle, silk and wearing clothes underneath the ankle.
Isbal is a major sin. There is no question about that. Any cloth that goes beneath the ankles is a major sin in Islam. If the person knows what he's doing, that is very dangerous. And using the excuse of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has connection with divine. Then he assessed that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq doesn't do this out of pride. This is like a revelation. Now, you can't just promote this culture. They should stick to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Enough that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was dying, bleeding, dying. And a young man entered to see him. He called upon him. And he said, lift up your garment. So this is a serious business. So we shouldn't take it light, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. What was the second question?